No nation and no people in the world, all through history, ever subject to aggression like those who said no. The no is the center of the equation of struggle between the good and the evil. Yet, even if it looks as though the evil has won a round in the battle here or there, by the end, evil will be the loser. Our great-grandfather Al-Hussein knew that he, along with 70 others, were going to fight a much larger army. But he knew that if he had said yes, we would not have remembered him. But when he said no, he became what he is. Since the early days of history, the land of Mesopotamia was the true cradle of civilizations. On this land, the alphabet letters were first born. And in here, the first law ever organizing the human rights was decreed. Civilizations brought up to existence by genius-minded and by strong-handed people who worked continuously without rest to serve mankind. And from the early days of history, the wicked, greedy, and the aggressive parties used to weave the worst plots against this country to hinder its human excellence and to destroy its advanced achievements. Still, if Iraq is the most country that is subjected to aggression in the world, it is one of the most countries that is capable to wipe out the scars of aggression and that can rebuild all that lead to development and to prosperity, no matter how severe the damages were. as it had happened a number of times in ancient and in contemporary history, one notices that as soon as the July 17th, 1968 revolution occurred, all the dark forces endeavored to work together, plotting desperately to foil the revolution. The aggressive evil attacks were stronger after the nationalization of oil in 1972, which was followed by a huge plan of national development, which breathed the advancement of decades in only a few years. The enemies went mad and therefore plotted the 8-year aggression, which revealed extreme amounts of Iraqi patience and legends of Iraqi heroism and capability. All through the years of the Iranian aggression, the workers in Iraq never stopped their constructive work, nor the fighters of Iraq ever stopped their legendary fighting in defense of their national soil until victory. Once again, in a few months, the Iraqis, through hard work, extreme efforts, and exceptional capabilities, managed to rebuild all that was damaged through devastating war of 8 years. All sectors of the Iraqi people participated in the country's reconstruction. Because the victory Iraq achieved was not merely a military one, but rather a victory of a civilizational impact with beaming positive reflections upon the Arab nation as a whole, the enemies had the more reason to proceed in their plots. In the womb of that steadfastness, the Stone Revolution was born in Palestine, backed up by the victory of the Arab people. The revolution was the stronger, and it woke up with roaring achievement all the sleepy public opinion. Palestine became equal to justice after long years of injustice, and the voice of Palestine became higher than ever after years of total silence, after being a case long forgotten. The American Zionist camp started its preparations to plan aggression on Iraq. That included a wide campaign of counter-propaganda with all sorts of lies or alleged accusations against Iraq, aiming at distorting Iraq's reputation before international public opinion. The conspiracy was transformed to the second stage. That was on April 4th, 1990, when the United States Congress passed resolutions advising economic and scientific sanctions against Iraq. Along with the information campaign and the economic sanctions decision, espionage activities were discovered on Iraq's scientific installations with an aim to disturb its political, industrial and technical security to prepare the final phase of the aggression. The masses sensed the nature and goals of the American Zionist conspiracy against the leadership, the army and the people of Iraq. They took to the streets in roaring demonstrations in Baghdad and in other capitals and cities in the Arab homeland. Hundreds of thousands of Arabs in Algiers, in Morocco, Sudan, Yemen, Jordan, Mauritania, Tunis, and elsewhere. They all raised slogans that call upon the others to stand up by Iraq against the new threats. Ismail al-Samkhani, Secretary General of the Tunisian Work Union. Our union does not accept this attack. We stand against its colonialist aims. We stand with the people of Iraq in their struggle.
وإذا كان المستعمرين قد توهموا بالنصر
Tajisser, head of the Sudan Union of Workers. If the colonialists had the illusion of victory and made preparations to divide the Arab nation after war, we say that we shall rebuild Iraq, and after war we shall erect monuments of victory for the coming generations. Our leader in all this always will be Saddam Hussein. The mass and vocational organizations practiced constant activities to back the Iraqis. Among these organizations, there was the International Arab Trade Union Association, who organized an urgent session to its executive committee in Baghdad in May 1990, during which the members of the committee had the honor to meet the President Saddam Hussein on 5th of May 1990.
يسعدنا جدا بهذه المناسبة.
It gives me pleasure to have a chance to meet with you, being the International Union for Arab Workers, in this urgent session meeting in Baghdad, the country of steadfastness and victory, the country of dignity.
في قطرنا العراق الشقيق، عراق صمود، عراق نصر، عراق العزة، عراق القرار. ويا سيادة الرئيس، نحن وجدنا في خطابكم.
In your speech, Mr. President, we see Brother Iraq saying no to imperialism, to America, and to Zionism.
ونحن في حاجة.
We need this steadfastness and this confrontation. As representatives of all the Arab workers, we confirm our stand with you, and our union works for the national Arab goals and supports all those who believe in these goals and who defend them. I have the pleasure to convey greetings of Palestine workers inside and outside the occupied territories. Greetings from the children of the Stone Revolution. Greetings of women, of men and the elderly who look highly at the scientific achievements of Iraq. Visiting Iraq nowadays, we see the Iraqis celebrating days of glory and days of victory. As said before, the Persian invasion targeting Iraq was the game of the big powers who planned to destroy the ambitions of Iraq and of the Arab nation. That's why there was that long, fierce war for which you made the glorious Arabic history through its prominent and famous Arab leaders.
باسم عمال الأردن وباسم العمال العرب وباسم الشعب العربي.
On behalf of Jordan workers and the Arab workers and people, the workers represent the conscience of the nation. They all stand by President Saddam Hussein because their peoples want so. They are eager to see the rise of the nation and to say no to America, no to colonialism, no to domination, and no to the forces that steal the riches of the Arab nations.
العمال المغاربة جزء من الأمة ومن الأمة العربية.
The Moroccan workers are part of the Arab nation. We have one stand which is confirmed, and with you till victory, God's willing.
بقفل ومفتاحه مرمي في البحر. فنحن منحازين معكم إلى النصر إن شاء الله. ونحن جزء.
We are part of this nation. We are Iraqis in Morocco as you are Moroccans in Iraq. While the mass rally with Iraq was getting stronger, the heads of the conspiracy of the Arab Gulf oil sheiks had gone far enough in playing their roles in the plan to break down the Iraqi economy. The enemies exposed themselves one after the other. The masses understood the volume of danger facing Iraq and the nation. The economic sanctions were a siege around the Iraqi people, with no exception even to baby milk or to medicine, wishing that such actions might weaken the people or drive the leadership to surrender to the American Zionist terms, but things were not like that. Arab mass organizations undertook to withstand the cruel sanctions. The Arab Workers' Organization held activities and big festivals to denounce the siege. They called upon all the workers in the world to stand by Iraq and to plead to the other regimes involved in the conspiracy to change their positions. They even campaigned against loading or unloading the cargo of the enemy ships and planes, like the French ship, the Napoleon. The aggressive forces compiled all their stocks in the Gulf and Arab Peninsula under the slogan of false international legitimacy, and likewise under the patronage of Arab umbrella, severely obtained through pressure, blackmail, and threatening. It was a total package deal with retail payment to all parties, each in accordance to its services. Yet, in spite the military existence of the forces of 30 countries, never witnessed before in contemporary history, the Arab masses did not yield. The Arab Women Federation campaigned through the peace vessel Ibn Khaldun, loaded with cargo of baby milk and medicine that was collected as donations from human institutions. And the Arab workers campaigned through the peace vessel Balqis, also loaded with donations of baby milk and medicine to the patient Iraqi people. Still, the peace vessel Balqis, whose trip was organized by the General Union of Arab Moroccan Workers, was denied passage through Suez Canal. Therefore, baby milk, medicine, and food cargoes to the Iraqi people and Iraqi children were also stopped. The pressure witnessed against Iraq could not change the big no said to the United States and its savage power. That was a unique confrontation between forces of evil aimed at the destruction of a great civilization from the one hand, and between a courageous people decided to defend its lawful rights on the other. To wage a battle in that form, Iraq was equipped with self-confidence, with belief in itself and in the nation, belief in its religion and deep-rooted history. Those values stood against a vicious force of a criminal and bloody historical background. Before the unfamed military aggression, the American president kept confirming to the world that they wanted what they called a clean war between two armies. But the United States and its allies practiced in their aggression the worst and most dirty warfare indulgences witnessed by mankind. thousands of air raids targeting anything that involves the daily details of civilian life in Iraq. Attacks on telephone nets of communications in each town, in each township, and in each village. The barbaric bombardment did not exclude the tiniest communication unit, many of which were targeted twice and many 3 times. Hundreds of enemy jet planes and rockets bombarded the electrical power stations with thousands of tons of various kinds of bombs. Even small branch generators in the suburbs were also hit. Barbaric and inhumane nature targeted the drinking water pumping and distilling units in each and every city or village in Iraq. Each place was subject to many hits on several days to make sure the Iraqis do not get clean drinking water. Then the American Zionist aggression turned to roads and bridges. They chose in Baghdad, the capital, those bridges that are most important and that have the deepest fine memories by the Iraqis for their historical, humane, and importance. After the hundreds of thousands of air raids and rocket hits succeeded in bringing darkness, hunger, thirst, and lack of communications to the Iraqi civilians, the aggressors went even further in their barbaric acts as to attack civilian houses, schools, hospitals, centers of art and culture in a vicious and evil attempt to blunt the social, human, and cultural life of this country who dared say no to injustice. Yet, and very specifically, the most cruel and barbaric act of the aggressors was hitting the civilian shelters and target innocent people therein. The attack and bombing of Al-Amriya civilian shelter is a sharp witness to the American barbaric attitude and criminal act. It is a proof of how false their allegations of humanity, civilization, or being just as they claim in their mass media. The mass murder of hundreds of women and children in Al-Amriya shelter is a shame that smears the American humanity for years and years to come. It is in fact the addition to their infamous history of barbarism ever since the elimination of the Red Indians and all through the passage of death in Hiroshima, in Nagasaki, and later on in Vietnam. One may plainly ask, where is the clean war Bush mentioned? Horrible weeks of darkness, destruction, ruins, and mass murder, leading to nothing. Iraq did not surrender, but rather stood with patience on firm grounds, leaning on his historical background and cultural heritage. Military brutal aggression could not achieve in weeks of horror, other factions endeavored to carry out in breaking down this country into total collapse. Infiltrators and insurgent mob were driven from outside the borders to the Iraqi territories. Military aggression and the economic sanctions and siege were planned and executed by 30 countries. Still, the internal disturbances executed by the insurgents mob added extra numbers of participants in that filthy conspiracy. Iraq found himself facing a new battle and a new enemy, a new challenge against its culture and civilization. While Iraq was busy in withstanding the American Zionist aggression, Iran was practicing dirty acts against the Iraqis and the Iraqi territories. Iran sent big amounts of flour sacks alleged to be carrying flour to help the Iraqis in their torment, but they were actually filled with guns and ammunition to disturb the internal security and integrity of this country. They used the mosques and Muslim shrines as hiding places for their weapons and later on as headquarters for their criminal operations. Though these mob acts seemed independent and free-handed in the beginning, but later on events proved that everything was very carefully planned in Iran to attack Iraq and to break down his national unity and security. These mob acts targeted specific places that have connection to the citizens' daily life, like the Home Office departments, the land registration offices, the traffic police offices, and other important places. The aims behind these criminal acts were to make the citizens strangers in their own homeland, in their own towns. The same style was exactly followed in each town, each village, each county. The same mob routine with the same targets, all done in a black and cloudy atmosphere of war, counter-information, and distortion. A premeditated plan to bring fear in the people's hearts, to eliminate their ability of resistance, to fade away their livestock, to remove their identification, and to steal their medicine and other sources of lifeline. In spite of this ring of desperation, the plot was a big failure and a shame to its doers. The conspiracy was in fact a new inspiration to the Iraqis to renew life and to adhere further to their leadership after they reckoned on religion and on their faith in God.
هذا الفعل موجه ضد كل عراقي شريف.
This act targeted all the honest Iraqis, not against one place where the horrible deed took place. It targeted our calamity. They attack our attachment to honor, and all knew that honor comes before bread. Shame on them. They could never affect the high spirit of the people.
لماذا تقولون أن الشرف مرجح على لقمة العيش؟ في كل هذا يحاولون خسئوا أن يهزوا المبادئ.
Brothers, we must not lose our belief in our principles, the principles of manhood, or these of the message we work for and the message we believe in.
ولكن علينا إخواني
We believe that we are one people from Zaho till Fao.
وكعراقيين علينا أن نحذر من أن تهتز المبادئ في تفكيرنا، سواء مبادئ الرجال أو مبادئ الرسالة التي نؤمن بها. نحن نؤمن بأننا شعب واحد من زاخو إلى الفاو.
The good people of Iraq start again their new life. The Iraqi fists that held the arms against the enemy in the front carry now the tools in rebuilding the country after the destruction of war. That rebuilt Baghdad after the barbaric attacks in the Middle Ages. They are the same arms that built Iraq after the Iranian aggression of the 80s. And now they endeavor once more to rebuild the new country, Iraq of the 20th century. They have no time to waste. Baghdad is again full of lights. Life is streaming in all the veins of the Iraqi cities and the Iraqi villages. Electricity, pure drinking water, hospital services, telephone and telex communications, roads and bridges, all that connects the daily life of the citizens, all that was subject to aggression by the Americans and Zionists. While the Iraqis race with time to follow the progress in every aspect, the enemies keep running as well to finish the Palestine cause, completely forgetting their allegations of international legitimacy and human rights. The aggression they reckoned a lot upon to enslave the Arab nation forms the beginning of a new rise. This is Palestine, standing firmly in spite of the Zionist repression and the American maneuvers. The Arab masses are removing the effects of aggression and have chosen the path of unity and path of steadfastness. The torch of civilization shall ever glitter, and the torch of progress will never cease to shine here, and this land will ever remain safe.